What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Today we are going to be continuing our Which Stats Matter for Specific Positions series here on the channel, and today we're going to be covering running backs, and specifically which stats are most important for halfbacks and which stats can you kind of ignore on a halfback. Now, I want to preface this video, as I do with all of these, in saying that this is going to vary depending on what type of halfback build you are going for, and it's going to depend on what you're trying to do with your halfback. So take everything that I say with a grain of salt. I want to make that clear because it seems as though some may not necessarily do so. So make sure that you guys take everything that I'm saying here with a grain of salt, that this is based on my personal opinions and my takes, and which stats I've found to matter the most. Now, we're going to look at a couple of halfbacks here and jump right into it. So looking at Raheem Mostert to start, I think is a good example, because he displays, in my opinion, one of the most important attributes that you can have in a running back. And you guys might be saying, oh, it's obvious, it's speed. Well, that is actually not correct. In my personal opinion, based on my experience, based on my testing and everything, the most important stat or rating for a halfback in most situations, this isn't always true, but in most situations, the most important stat for a running back is acceleration. The higher your acceleration, the quicker this player gets to their top speed. And why does this matter the most for halfbacks out of any position? Why is acceleration so important for halfbacks? Well, the reason that acceleration is the most important stat for halfbacks, in my opinion, is because this is one of the only positions where as soon as they get the ball, they need to accelerate to their top speed as quickly as possible to get to the line of scrimmage, to break through the line of scrimmage, or to get to the edge. The acceleration on a running back, whether it's high acceleration or low acceleration, is going to be the true difference between whether this player can get to the line of scrimmage and gain a couple extra yards if there isn't any space there, or if that player can get to the edge and get those extra couple yards sooner than everybody else can. That acceleration is by far, in my opinion, the most important stat for a running back in Madden 21, and it's been the most important stat for running backs in Madden for a long time. Now, that's not to discredit the other stats that matter heavily, like speed. Obviously, having a faster running back is going to help you tremendously, but if you have that speed and you don't have the acceleration to complement it, that can be a major problem for you, because you're going to be getting tackled earlier than you want to, because you're not getting up to your top speed and you're not going to have the same force behind what you're trying to do with that halfback. Now, very much like wide receivers and other players that are going to have the ball in their hand very often, you're going to be looking at their agility and their change of direction as well. Those are stats that are tremendously important. Now, this is one of the stats specifically that I want to preface it by saying that this tremendously makes a difference depending on what you're trying to do with your halfback. If you have a Derrick Henry type of halfback where you're just trying to plow forward and break a couple tackles, you're not going to be heavily looking at change of direction and agility for those players. You're going to be looking at their strength, their acceleration, their break tackle, their trucking. Those stats are going to matter more for you. But if you're looking for a more balanced look at halfback, which is what I traditionally try to do, I try to have a player that can do all things, that's going to pick up yardage for me in any situation that I want to give him the ball. I'm looking for a player that has that ability to cut, has that ability to get to the edge, turn upfield, and do all of those things without losing speed or losing momentum. And so the most important stats for a halfback, and I tell this to a lot of people, and I practice what I preach, because I very rarely actually have high overall running backs in franchises, because I personally don't believe you need to have a super high overall running back in order to do well with them. Actually, my starting running back in this franchise is 57 overall, so I just want to point that out to you guys to show you exactly what's going on here. I did a fantasy draft here with my buddies, and my starting halfback is Bronson Rechsteiner, who's a fullback, basically transitioned over to halfback. Just wanted to show you guys that I practice what I preach. I'm starting a 57 overall at halfback because I'm trying to build a power back. It is not necessary to have a high overall to have an effective running back in Madden 21 or any Madden for that example. It has never been about a player's overall at halfback. It is all about their specific attributes. Now, with that being said, What are those attributes that matter outside of their athleticism? Obviously, it's going to help if a player is more athletic and they can get to the edge, they can turn that corner, they can make moves without losing speed. You know, a Christian McCaffrey is a perfect example of what you want to have in a running back in terms of athleticism, because he's got that good speed at 92, he's got good acceleration at 93, and then he has fantastic agility and change of direction, so he's always going to be able to change direction easily without losing momentum, without getting stuck in any animations. He's always going to be able to make those movements that you want him to move. That's what you're looking for out of an ideal athletic running back. So how can you find that in a lower overall running back? It's honestly quite easy. There are a lot of good running backs in this game that have similar stats, and so I want to preach to you guys that those are the stats that matter. Go out and get yourself a Tariq Cohen or even a Cordarrelle Patterson or Jerick McKinnon. There are various running backs in this game that have tremendous athleticism. Ronald Jones is like the prime example of it. These are the players that you want to be going after, because those are the players that you're going to be able to do the best with. But with that being said, let's take a look at the other stats and what specifically is going to set your running back apart and help you as a running back. And so we're going to look at break tackle next. Break tackle is one of those stats that, again, I say is kind of one that it depends on what you're trying to do with a running back. So a lot of times with my running backs specifically, I'm not trying to break a tremendous amount of tackles or anything like that. I'm trying to pick up the yardage that I know that I can gain, trying to get out of bounds, trying to get a couple yards, because I'm trying to set up whatever else is going on in my offense. Now, you guys might be different. If you have a halfback that you're specifically like a Derrick Henry or a power back, then you're going to be looking at break tackle, like I said, but not a tremendously important stat in my opinion is the break tackle stat. Likewise, stiff arm, trucking, not tremendously important for a running back if you're just simply trying to pick up yardage with them. If you want that power back type of player, then trucking, stiff arm, break tackle, those are going to be some of the most important stats for you. But for an all-purpose running back, a back that can catch the ball out of the backfield, can pick up the yardage that you need them to between the tackles, can get to the edge and various different things, trucking, stiff arm, not going to be tremendously important for you. Now, what I do is I try to get those stats to be around an 80, because that means that they're at least serviceable. So when you look at a player's break tackle, their stiff arm, their trucking, I like those things to be around 80, if not the high 70s, because at the very least that means that they're somewhat capable of doing those things. But those aren't the most important stats. Now, one stat that I've preached about fool's gold before at various other positions, one stat that is absolutely fool's gold in Madden 21 and in other Maddens as well, is the ball carrier vision stat. Now, if you're playing simulation style football where you're not actually controlling the player, ball carrier vision is absolutely crucial, because that's going to control whether this player recognizes where to actually run, where the holes are, where the cutback lanes are. That's going to be tremendously important for that. But if you're user controlling a running back, you are the ball carrier vision. You're the one telling the running back where to go, deciding which hole is open, which cutback lane to cut back into. And so ball carrier vision can tremendously increase a player's rating in Madden, but it's not really going to do anything for you. It's not going to help you in any way if you're user controlling that player. So that's one of those stats to look out for, because Christian McCaffrey has 96 ball carrier vision, but that does absolutely nothing for him, and that kind of hyperinflates his rating whenever it really shouldn't. The next stat to take a look at that is always important for every single running back in the game is going to be your carrying stat. And just to speak a little bit about the carrying stat, it factors directly into the fumbling formula whenever a player is hitting you, especially with a hit stick type of tackle. Your carrying rating, and the formula is out there online if you guys want to go look it up, but your carrying rating is basically compared against the tackling and the hit power rating of the player that is tackling you. And so if your carrying rating is higher than their hit power rating, then more often than not you're going to hang on to the ball. But if you get some of those running backs out here that are actually pretty good, that have pretty low carrying ratings, I mean, you can look at guys like Ezekiel Elliott has an 86 in here, and if you start to go into these lower overall running backs that I recommended before, like Jerick McKinnon, Cordarrelle Patterson, their carrying ratings are lower, and that's going to cause you to fumble quite a bit, even when you're going up against defensive backs, because there are some defensive backs out there that have better tackling and hit power ratings that are going to force the ball out against a player like that. You know, a Tariq Cohen, for example, a guy that I would love to utilize in franchise mode, but you have to be careful with how you utilize him, because if you're going straight at people all the time, you're going to fumble, and probably more often than you would like. And so that carrying rating is tremendously important for every single running back. You need to be paying attention to that. And realistically speaking, you can't really be comfortable that you're going to constantly hold onto the ball unless you have like 90 carrying or better. High 80s is decent, but really anything below that, you're really risking fumbling the ball tremendously often. So while this player is fantastic, while Tariq Cohen is a fantastic player to have, you can get a lot of yardage with him. He's a very great utility player. He can do just about anything you want him to do except for truck somebody over. He will fumble the ball if you're trying to initiate contact with him. So that's important to remember. The juke move and spin move, realistically in Madden 21, and I know that they've updated it a little bit, but personally speaking, I don't find the juke move and spin move to be all that important as they have been in the past, because I feel like the juke move and spin move in Madden 21 is far less effective than it has been in the past. But what I will say is that if you want to have a player that can effectively juke somebody out, or effectively spin somebody out, or effectively perform whatever type of skill move that you want to do, you need to have those ratings up close to the 90s, if not better. And that is kind of the threshold for where you can actually effectively pull off those moves. So that is something that is absolutely worth considering, because that's one of those stats that might be a little bit of a fool's gold again, where you see, oh, this player's got 80s in spin move and juke move, and you might sign him or add him to your team, or promote him to a starting role, thinking he can break off moves and fake out tacklers and whatnot, and they might just not actually be able to do that, because that's not really where the threshold is, because it shows green that he has 81 spin move, but that's really not that good of a spin move rating, and you're really not going to be able to fake many people out with an 81 spin move rating. Now, he will be able to with a 90 juke move rating, but that is really important for you guys to consider, because they've kind of changed the way juke moves and spin moves work with the new physics and everything, the new animations and everything that they've modified in the game. They've really changed the way juke move and spin move work. And maybe you guys, utilize it a little bit differently than I do, but, it's to the point really where I just start to duck out of bounds. I cover the ball whenever contact is coming and stuff like that. I don't even try to juke move and spin move that often anymore, because when I do, I get hit and I fumble it. Even with running backs that have like 95 or better carrying, I fumble the ball whenever I'm making a move, because that is a modifier. If you're trying to make a move and you get hit sticked while you're making a move, it greatly reduces your ability to hang on to the ball. And so realistically speaking, I just recommend that you guys kind of shy away from juke move and spin move and anything like that, and honestly just focus on a player that's going to pick up yardage for you, that's going to be able to get up to his top speed quickly, and that's going to be able to basically just quickly pick up the amount of yardage that you would want your halfback to pick up for you, and probably help you out in the passing game as well. We already talked about the change of direction rating. Now the strength rating is something that is worthwhile to consider. Like I said, this is going to matter tremendously if you are looking for a power back type of running back. The strength rating, I think, kind of factors in quite a bit to a lot of the trucking animations and things like that. So if you're looking at a Derrick Henry or a Saquon Barkley, even a Dalvin Cook, these players, their strength ratings matter. Derrick Henry, you guys can see, has 87 strength. Nick Chubb has 85. Josh Jacobs has 86. That's going to factor into their ability to actually pull off truck moves and stiff arms, because that's going to be compared against the players that they're going up against. So, if that's the type of running back that you're going for, which, I've done that in the past, that is the type of stat that you're going to want to look for. You're going to want to look for a good player with good strength, because very often you might find a running back that is a power type back that has good, trucking or something like that, but you might find a guy that has good trucking that might not have good strength to back it up to kind of go with that. And so, you might look at a guy like Scarbrough, who has 75 break tackle, 87 trucking. He might look like a very good power power back, but he's only got 78 strength to pair with that. So he might not be able to effectively get those moves off the same way that you would with a Derrick Henry, because he just doesn't have the strength to go with it to help with those modifiers in those formulas that are going on behind the scenes. So that is worth considering with your running backs, is that you want to really get 80 plus strength and even into the high 80s if you really want to have an effective trucker or an effective power type of back. Now we're going to look at some of the secondary attributes. We've talked about most of the core attributes. Remember, ball carrier vision, that's the fool's gold rating here. It's something that does not matter unless you're playing sim football. Looking at the secondary attributes, catching, short route running, medium route running, pass blocking, run block, impact block. These things matter a little bit for running backs, but realistically the stats that you're going to want to focus on is the catching stat, the short route running stat, and you're really going to want to look at the release stat. Medium route running, how often are you going to have a running back that is going downfield and running a route that's not very simple? You might have them on a streak or something like that, or you might have them on some type of crossing pattern, but generally speaking, your running backs aren't going to be out there performing any type of crazy route. So the medium route running, the deep route running, those types of things, not going to matter for your running back. Usually they're going to be running short stuff. So short route running, that will help them run those routes effectively and make their cuts quickly and be able to be a good receiver for you. With that being said, the release stat is tremendously important for their ability to sneak through the offensive line. Now, this is something that I've noticed over my career in Madden, and not something that I have any hard stats to back up for you, but players with higher release, running backs anyway with higher release, tend to be able to slip out from the offensive line and get between those guys without getting tripped up. This impacts screen plays and little out routes and things like that, but screen plays the most. If you've ever noticed a running back that you're trying to utilize get caught up on their offensive lineman constantly when you're trying to run a screen play, that could very well be because of their bad release rating or because of their bad short route running. Players with good short route running and good release, those things help them be able to run those screen plays effectively. It helps them run those routes that go through the offensive line effectively without getting tripped up and without getting kind of slowed down while doing so. Pass blocking does matter for running backs, and this is something that I think I put a lot of value on that a lot of other people do not put value on. I like having a running back that can stay in and block for me if that's what I want them to do. Now, I generally don't have my running backs stay in very often and block for me, but getting a guy with like 70 run blocking or high 60s run blocking, that's a guy that can stop a blitzer for a couple of seconds and buy you a couple seconds of time that is tremendously valuable. This is something that I think that really can't be understated. Whenever you have some of these guys that have really good blocking ability, they can buy you seconds in the pocket that are absolutely crucial when you're trying to pass downfield. And something to be aware of is that some of the really good running backs in the game have pretty poor pass blocking. And so Christian McCaffrey is one that is given pretty good pass blocking, but you might look at a Saquon Barkley, for example. He can't pass block in the game to save his life. And that is a huge detriment. I would take a running back that is not even close to as good as him, that has the same type of athleticism, that might have a little bit better pass blocking, because that is so valuable to me. If I want to keep a running back in a pass block for me, I need them to be able to pay attention and pick up the guy and at least buy me another second or two to get rid of the ball. So something that I look at quite a bit that I think a lot of people might overlook and say, well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, how often are you going to have that player in blocking for you? Well, if you have that player in blocking for you, they better pick somebody up and they better buy you a little bit of time. So that is something that is absolutely worth noting, in my opinion. Then we take a look at the impact block rating, not a rating that's going to matter for a running back unless for some reason you have them in as a fullback. I guess that might factor into the formula a little bit in terms of their pass blocking ability, but I've no evidence to say that does. Realistically, just their pass blocking rating is what matters the most for running backs. The run blocking rating, again, not going to matter unless you have them in a fullback situation, which is realistically never going to happen. Catch in traffic and spec catch, those do matter quite a bit for a running back, and those are something that you should certainly not shrug off, because a lot of times a running back is going to be catching the ball with a linebacker near them or somebody near them. I mean, it's very rare, I think, that you're going to have a running back that's wide open unless you're dumping it to them in the backfield. So, catch in traffic could be important for them depending on what you're trying to do with them. If you're running a lot of screen plays, for example, well, then catch in traffic and their catching rating is probably not going to matter at all, because the running back has nobody near them on a screen play generally if it worked properly. So their catching rating is never going to factor in. But if you have a running back that you're going to actually utilize to help you in the passing game, then you are going to want to pay attention to their catch in traffic, spec catch, and catch ratings. Now, with that being said, good catch ratings and good catch in traffic and spec catch ratings for running backs are what you would see on a Saquon Barkley here in the mid to high 70s. Anything better than that is tremendous for a running back. But even just having that little bit of a difference between a 74 catching and a 70 catch in traffic compared to like a 60, that's going to help you out tremendously in the pass game if you're trying to utilize this running back in a way that he is potentially going to get hit as soon as he catches the football. With that being said, kick return rating, I suggest that you completely disregard kick returning with running backs. Now, I like kick returning with running backs on occasion because they do break tackles a little bit more often than a wide receiver or something would, because they are generally a bigger body player as well. But one of the things that I will say is that if it's like your starting running back, for example, they're going to be tired if they're returning the kickoff. Generally it's going to be a backup player that is returning kickoffs for me. So I would say disregard their kick return ratings for a starting running back. Injury rating, tremendously important for a halfback, because these are players that are getting hit every single play. These are players that every time you hand off the ball, they're bound to take a big hit. So if you have a running back that is likely to get injured, that's going to hurt you in the long run. You want to have those high injury ratings on your running back, and that is one of the most important stats. And then the stamina rating is also important. Depending on what sliders you guys run, we run modified sliders where we have the fatigue increased and everything like that, so the players will get tired quickly. Having a running back that can stay on the field for one or two more runs, it could be the difference between winning a game and losing a game. You don't want your best running back being subbed out of the game. We take a look at Saquon Barkley, for example. You don't want your 95 carrying running back being subbed off the field for an 85 carrying running back when you need 1 yard. You want that guy on the field that's going to get you that 1 yard. And so stamina, tremendously important. And then toughness. Running backs get injured a lot. I mean, it's just the reality of it. Even in Madden, they get injured a ton. And so their toughness affects their ability to come back from injury. You want to have a running back that has good toughness, because that will determine their ability to come back from injury and how severe their injuries and stuff are. Now, I will say that I don't know exactly how the toughness rating works behind the scene. I haven't done a ton of research into it, because generally speaking, I don't care a lot about it. But that is a position that toughness and injury and stamina might be one of it might be the most important for a running back compared to other positions. If it were to matter for anybody, it would matter for running backs, is what I'm trying to say. So hopefully this information is useful to you guys. Like I said, it's going to depend on what you're doing with your running back, which type of running back you're trying to have, and what type of plays you're going to be utilizing them in. Take everything I said with a grain of salt, but the couple points that I want to emphasize: acceleration is the most important stat, in my opinion, for a running back. Likewise, their agility and change of direction is going to tremendously help their ability to turn up and not lose momentum and speed whenever they're trying to cut up field and get around the edge and things like that. And then the Fool's Gold rating is the ball carrier vision. And so a great example of this, I'm happy that I clicked on Saquon Barkley. He's only got 78 ball carrier vision. So that you're getting a true 91 overall player with Saquon Barkley, because that ball carrier vision isn't artificially inflating his rating. Whereas you take a look at a guy like a Christian McCaffrey, that their ball carrier vision is potentially hyperinflating their rating hitting because he is 96, and that never comes into play unless it's simulation style football and that player is controlling themselves. If you're user controlling the player, like I said, you are in charge of where the ball carrier goes. You are the ball carrier vision. So hopefully this information helps you guys out, or you find it useful in some way. If you do, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you guys have a good night.